is literally turning the United States into a surveillance state. They're building a massive system that's going to give ICE access to millions of Americans' IRS data. This includes your tax records and addresses. This computer program will give ICE on-demand access to taxpayers' data so they can hunt down and deport people that they want to deport. What's crazy is that internal emails are showing the agency's own general counsel is warning that ICE's request to access 7.3 million records is illegal. The guy who warned about this was then fired 2 days later. Their goal is to launch this system by the end of July and deport 3,000 people a day. I can't help but wonder how many of these people are going to be innocent American citizens or immigrants that are here legally. Think about what they're doing here. They're literally weaponizing the IRS, an agency that holds some of your most sensitive information. And it's being handed over to ICE for mass deportations. No warrants, no court oversight, just raw access to your home address via tax records. And if they're doing this to 7 million Americans today, what's stopping them from expanding it to political opponents? What we are witnessing is surveillance and authoritarianism in the United States.
Right, giving all praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai Ba'Shem, Ruchakodash, send double honors to our apostles and elders, every great millstone. Peace and blessings to the Lord's hopefully elect. Now we know in the scriptures, now we know in the scriptures, and we didn't already know, that ICE is going to be part of that militia that's going to be used to target the believers. Don't believe what they say when they say, even when they said that they're going to just target illegals, but immediately Trump said, what, we're going to expand that definition and we're just going to make it mean to whoever we want, because we could say criminals or bad people. And we know that they're not going to stop there. They're not going to stop there, because at first it was targeting illegals, but now they're targeting illegals. Now it's criminals. Just know they're going to not stop there. They are establishing the image of the beast, which is the Roman system, which goes back to complete control, a centralized government. Everything's centralized. All databases are centralized. So, basically ICE is going to have access to your IRS data. So they're going to know everything about you. They're going to know your tax records. They're going to know everything about you. They're establishing this centralized banking, centralized monitoring. That's what they're doing. Everything's going to be centralized so that all the authoritative powers that be will have access to all people. It's establishing this system, this the image of the beast, the Roman Empire system, which is a centralized government, centralized banking, which is going to lead to the mark of the beast, which is which is going to be that microchip. And these are all things set up in place to establish that centralized government. And don't believe that ICE is just going to target illegals. This is just what they say, because of the devil. Part of the devil's strength is his deception. His strength is his deception. So his deception says, just like when he goes to war with Iran, this is for world peace. When they come to that microchip, this is to save the planet. The agenda is always, humanitarian aid and assistance with feeding the poor and stopping world hunger. That's how they get in. That's how they slip through the door. That's how they establish their businesses. That's how they establish their name as the owner or whatever it is. And then once you sign into it, they got the legal okay to do whatever they're doing. Then that's when they really show their horns and show what it's really for. That's exactly what Trump is doing with the whole ICE thing. So it's never about what they say it's about. Whatever they say, like the front is just a nice packaged front as a deception to get the people's guard down, to get them to agree to these terms, and then they're just going to use it against you. That's what this whole thing's about. And the American people are actually starting to see. They always throw in that what's stopping them from just targeting us or targeting anybody. What's stopping them, like he said, political opponents. Basically anybody that says something we don't like. And we understand that the scriptures talk about that eventually the believers of the truth will be targeted. And we know now how it's going to be, because we know that ICE is going to be essentially a part of it. They might even just change the name. It might not even be called ICE anymore. It's not even, because they're just like, you know what? Let's not even call it immigration. What is it? Immigration and something. enforcement. Let's just call it whatever the hell. They might change it to whatever. Let's just call it bad people roundup, whatever they want to call it, because they're going to change the name, they're going to change the definition, they're going to broaden their so-called criteria, and eventually it's going to target the believers. And they said they're trying to roll this out. He said, well, by the end of July, they're pushing everything for a centralized one world government where all the power is in the hand of a few, just as it was in the Roman Empire with the emperor, except now it's going to be the wicked elite, the international bankers. Just like this video here was titled, it was never about quote unquote illegals.
From the Justice Department outlines an aggressive new strategy to actually strip citizenship from naturalized Americans. Lee, you are a naturalized U.S. citizen.
I am.
Does this strike some fear in you?
How could it not? You know, I'm not alone. There are 24 million of me in this country that are naturalized. You said 53% of the total amount of immigrants. And I think it just keeps bringing it back to the idea that this was never about illegals, about criminals. It was about who we don't want in this country. Because the amount of people that we're seeing rounded up, you know, at immigration courts, they're there doing it correctly. And they're being rounded up and taken by ICE officers. Then we're talking about, does your birthright citizen count? You know, does that count? And then you talk about people like me who are naturalized. I came here as a student. I had a student visa, then I had an H-1B visa, then I had a green card, temporary green card, then a green card, then I applied for citizenship. It is no joke. The common argument for undocumented immigrants in this country is, why don't they just come here legally? And the legal way is actually very hard. It is expensive, it is hard, it is complicated. We don't have nearly enough ways to come here legally. There's a lot of people who come in crisis and then think, okay, I'll just get my things organized once I'm here and my family is safe. I did it completely legally, and I can tell you it took years, it took thousands and thousands of dollars, and it took time. You're constantly jumping through new hoops to prove that you are not a problem. And now they're saying you did it entirely legally, and we can still take it from you because we're going to decide who's American, we're going to decide who counts, and we're going to decide what the rules are after the fact. And that's a little bit like changing the rules of the game after you've played the game.
Which is how they operate. That's exactly how they took this entire earth, took this entire world, with deception. And they're doing it again. And no, it was never about the quote-unquote illegals or the bad ones. It's about establishing a rule and authority for them to put people in concentration camps, primarily Israel. Okay, you so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans, you're the target, right? It's always been about you primarily, and they want to get it on the books because they just want to bring back that image, the image of the Roman Empire, which is just the Caesar has all the power. They gave you amendments, now they want to come take it back. They gave you Constitution, they're trying to do away with the Constitution. Oh, you're a natural born citizen, we'll take that away. We'll take away your ability to have any type of immunity to what we say or what we want to do. So we're going to give ICE your information, right? And we're going to target whoever we want to target. So no, it's not going to stop it with legals. It's not going to stop with even legals. It's not going to stop with natural born or anything. This is about Esau versus Jacob. Okay, Esau seeks to slay his brother, and he want to put our people back in slavery, and he want to do it however way he wants. Those concentration camps has nothing to do with getting people out of here. It's just about putting people in captivity. That's what it's all about. And the scripture talk about how there's going to be a sect that's going to target the believers. As 2 Ezra 16 verse 70 says, for there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord Yahweh. They shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. Right? The so-called deporting. But that deportation is really just them sending you to a concentration camp or overseas to another concentration camp. It says, then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as the gold in the fire. Hear, O ye my beloved, said the Lord, behold, the days of trouble are at hand, but I will deliver you from the same. So, and this is why we send the message, because we're not here to lie to you. We're not here to tell you everything's going to be all right, in a sense, like as the book of Zephaniah chapter 1 says, the Israelites are saying the Lord would do neither good nor evil. Like we just gonna be living in Babylon. We don't know when the Lord's gonna come back. There ain't gonna be no Jacob's trouble. We just gonna be prancing around, and next thing you know, up the missiles flying. No, there's gonna be a buildup, and part of that buildup is that there's gonna be a famine of the word, and we can see why. Eventually, we won't be able to go out and teach. Okay, and eventually, the prophets and the believers will be targeted. If you call yourself an Israelite, you will be targeted. You know they're going to just broaden the definition to say anybody who calls himself an Israelite is quote-unquote anti-Sem, because to call ourselves Israelites is a direct conflict, is a direct, is a direct opposition of the so-called Jews. That's why we say so-called, because they're not really biblical. The true biblical Jews from the tribe of Judah is the so-called Negro population, but the Israelites in general. And if we call ourselves the Israelites, then the question is, who are they? And if they're in their best believe, whenever they pass a rule, they're going to make sure they throw in anti-Sem. So ICE, right, is going to be a militia, right? And the word insurrection means a violent uprising against an authority or government. But the scripture says that there will be an insurrection upon the believers. So there are going to be militia groups and attacks against those who believe. So you know, people like ICE is going to be like one organization to do that, to execute that. So now we know that ICE is definitely more than likely going to be a part of that insurrection upon the believers, as they're looking to establish this centralized data system where they can have access to all people who live in America, all Babylonians, and all of us who live in the system. So they'll be able to look at our faces. They'll go to, they know who we are. They already know who we are. So they'll be able to easily find us, get information to ICE, label us whatever they want to label us, and then try to send them after us. That's why the Lord said he's going to come and protect us in that day. But we see now why, right? And you know what's unfortunate is that you have an Israelite group that actually forces their members, men and women, to go and legally change their name to Ben Israel, because they say you were born with a nigga coon name, and you're not a real believer unless you take this step, and that step is to go to the government and legally change your last name to Ben Israel because you have a nigga coon name. But Jesus, that's a nigga coon name, but they're going to stick with that. That's hypocrisy. And the apostles and the elders, we've been saying that in the long run, that's going to be dangerous, because now Esau Edom is going to know who you are. But what they try to convince their members is that you're scared and you're not really committed until you take the legal step. No, what he's doing is, according to the contract that he has with the government, right, with that 501c3, he's just doing his part in basically going to record to get his members in his congregation on record so that he can maintain his good status and going to get them legally married. He go basically send them to Esau, send them to the system. So in doing so, he can operate how he's been operating, and they can still make all that money. And what we basically told y'all was that y'all basically got sold out, because all it takes is to hear information like that and to realize and to understand prophecy, to see how they can connect the dots and they can round up Israel. And look how easy it's going to be for them to find anybody with the last name Ben Israel. They can go and find you and round you up. This is why we told y'all that you guys got sold you out, and you're going to really see the gravity of how far he sold you out real soon. And you know what someone like that will say when they get found out is they would say something along the lines of, this is my way of protecting y'all. You know, because didn't he just put out that ad calling himself the beacon of hope, and that he's the one that's going to lead the people to liberation? Typically, when guys get called out, they'll say, this is my way to protect you. I basically made a covenant with the heathen, and if we put ourselves under his yoke, we could protect you. You know, that's what these type of people say, is like a cult, as we would say. But what Isaiah 28 says, verse 15, it says, because ye have said, we have made a covenant with death, and at hell we are at agreement. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it shall not come unto us. For we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood have we hid ourselves. And the NLT says you all trying to cheat death, and this is exactly what you're trying to do. You're trying to get around judgment. And part of the reason why, and one method people go to get around judgment is to go and make an agreement with the heathen, the Pharaoh, make an agreement with Egypt to say, as long Egypt has an army, Egypt has horses, Egypt has the dollar. If we make an agreement with Pharaoh, then we'll never fall, because who's going to take down Pharaoh? And this is how we could protect ourselves, by making a deal with Egypt. Just read 1 Maccabees 1. Okay? What verse 17 says? Judgment also will I lay at the line. I'll just jump to 18. It says, and your covenant with death. No, 17. Your judgment also will I lay to the line, and righteousness to the plummet. And the hell sweep shall sweep away the refuge of lies, and the waters shall overflow the hiding place. And your covenant with death shall be disannulled, and your agreement with hell shall not stand. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, okay, ice, that insurrection, ye shall be trodden down by it. So that contract you made with the devil is gonna fail, because you forgot that man was the devil, and he backstabs every damn body. He uses you to get his information. He's gonna use you to push the agenda. He's using you to tell the people that he's going to use you to tell people to take the chip, right? And a lot of times being silent, that's showing you're consenting. They don't speak against the White House. They're not warning you about alligator Alcatraz. They're not warning you about Elon Musk and his technocracy agenda with the brain chips. They're not warning you about Bill Gates and the microchips. They're not warning you of that. They have to stay silent, and that's them consenting with the powers that be. So their focus is just, you could say, the Christian church, because that's an easy target. But they're not going to warn you of these things, right? He's going to say, when they get found out, they're going to say, this is our way of protecting y'all. Get up under our wing, and we can make sure that when Esau makes his move on us, we all be protected. But then the devil's going to show you, I'm the devil. You forgot. And then he's going to come around Jacob. You see what we're saying? This is real, man. This ain't no joke. And you people gonna realize that the scriptures talk about hirelings for a reason. But the point being, ICE is definitely gonna be a part of that militia group to run that insurrection, and you see it happening in place. And they, like I said, they might change the name, or they might throw another organization in their desire to get the quote unquote undesirables, whoever they call terrorists or whatever. And your real, and like I said, they stripping actual natural born citizenship, and don't be surprised if they just change the definition to what being a citizen is, and say that a real citizen is anybody who takes this mark and bows to the image. If you don't take this mark, or you don't take this, bow to this image, then you're really not a true American. Whatever they can say. And that's exactly how they're gonna spin it, because they're gonna say, look, people, we're moving ahead. We are the future. The future is, you need to surrender your security, surrender your privacy, surrender it all to us. This is the new way of living, and you're gonna take this microchip, and anybody who refuses, we're just gonna label you a rebel or whatever it is, and we'll take you out. So they're gonna keep changing definitions to classify who is a citizen, or who is safe, and eventually, as the prophecy says, that requirement is going to be that microchip, which is the mark of the beast. So with that, shalom.